Welcome back to the world of working designs. In this installment, we will be covering Working Designs' involvement with the Turbografx game console, as well as the first two games they released. Based in Redding, California, Working Designs first started in the late 1980s as a software company dedicated to making and distributing accounting software. After the main programmer and co-founder, Todd Marks, suddenly passed away, Victor Ireland was brought on board. Victor Ireland came on to finish the work, and after a few years assisting the company with their current products, introduced the idea of producing video games. He would soon become the president and figurehead of the company for the rest of its run. Ireland would become heavily involved with the acquisition, adaptation, and release of every game put out by Working Designs' life, and was known to be very vocal and communicate openly with his fans on Usenet and later the Working Designs message boards. Victor Ireland was a fan of the Turbografx 16, a Japanese game console from NEC and Hudson Soft that was originally known as the PC Engine in Japan. First released in 1987 in Japan and 1989 in the US, the game console used small game cards and later CD-ROMs to play games. It was huge in Japan, but a flop in the United States. Ireland became involved with the Japanese gaming import scene and wanted to better support the Turbografx in North America, so he persuaded his boss to pursue publishing there. Early on in his involvement with the gaming world, he was also a contributor to the Turbografx magazine, TurboPlay, often highlighting imports, including games he would eventually release himself, like Cosmic Fantasy II and Exile. Between 1991 and 1993, Working Designs would release 6 games for the Turbografx 16 and Turbografx CD systems, with even more planned that never materialized, such as Shubibinman 3, Cosmic Fantasy III, and Ghost Warrior Spriggan, to name a few. Victor Ireland said on the Retronauts podcast that he basically pestered Taito to get the rights to release Parasol Stars and Cadash for the Turbografx 16, and they became the first 2 games Working Designs would release. They would become the only games Working Designs would not release on a CD format. Right from the start, you can see Working Designs put extra effort into their presentation. In the US, Turbografx 16 games are typically came with ugly box art and boring, simple lettering on the game card and designs, while in Japan, the PC Engine art was much more varied and vibrant. Even at the beginning, you can tell that Working Designs tried to use their better images for packaging to stand out when they could and do right by the games they produced. According to Victor Ireland in an interview, Working Designs lost their shirts on Parasol Stars, but made up for it and broke even with Cadash. This would be a key reason why they would stick to the cheaper and easier to use CD format from that point on. Despite the shaky start, Parasol Stars and Cadash were quite well received and are still well regarded today. Now, let's move on to Parasol Stars. Parasol Stars is the 3rd game in the Bubble Bobble series of platform puzzle games. Unlike previous entries in the series, it was not initially designed for or ever released in arcades. Instead, it was specifically made for the Turbografx system before being ported elsewhere. In the game, you play as Bubby, the little boy from previous games, and maneuver through a playfield using a magic umbrella to grab water, shock, and other hazard droplets to fling at enemies around the stage so you can pick them up and defeat them. Shooting items across specific paths and levels can reveal hidden food that can be collected for extra points and lives. Each stage is a self-contained board and there are multiple themed worlds to play through. Play is fairly simple and doesn't really grow more complicated as levels go on, but difficulty and enemy patterns scale appropriately, making for a fair challenge throughout. controls are also very good. I never felt cheated or as if I was fighting with the game to go around as I went about. Parasol Stars does feature a multiplayer mode, but since you need these mysterious things called friends around who want to play, I cannot test it by myself. From what I can see online, multiplayer mode is a simultaneous co-op mode between two friends that does not alter the core gameplay. The graphics are very nice for a card-based Turbografx game. The world and characters are colorful and vibrant, and designs of enemies, items, and levels are all very cute and fun. The music is nice and catchy, but does get a little repetitive after a while, and there really isn't a lot of it. It's pleasant enough to hum along to for a while, but it isn't really anything I'd save to listen to on my own. Overall, I really enjoyed Parasol Stars. It's a fun game you can pick up and instantly get swept up to for 10 minutes or a few hours. The game is easy to learn and a good challenge to master. Chasing that high score is a fun time. I highly recommend this one. As far as I can tell, there weren't any major changes to it in its American release. No need to fix something that's not broken. Parasol Stars on the Turbografx isn't cheap today, but it's also one of the games compiled onto the Turbografx mini system, so you can find it and play it there if you'd like. Cadash is an action-adventure game with some significant RPG elements. It was first released in arcades before later being ported to home consoles on the Turbografx 16 and the Sega Genesis. The game is quite challenging with the no continues, and it takes some practice to get good at, but it is well worth the time invested. There is a 2-player co-op mode, but you need at least one other friend to test it, and yep. I got nothing. Moving on. The Turbografx version here features all 4 playable characters found in the original arcade release. The fighter, the ninja, the priest, and the mage. Compared this to just the fighter and the mage in the Sega Genesis home version. In Cadash, you fight through dungeons and caverns to defeat monsters, develop your character along the way, and eventually save the princess and the world. You can upgrade your character and pick up items to aid in your quest in towns along the way. All in all, it's pretty standard plot stuff. Each character option plays uniquely. They all have valid strengths and weaknesses and are all worth trying. The fighter is an all-around stronger, more balanced character wielding a sword, but he cannot use magic. The next most balanced character is the ninja. The ninja has throwing stars that can fly stabby death across the screen, but they are weaker than the fighter's sword. The priest uses a mace/chain type weapon with a long reach and gradually gains a range of magical abilities that can help them, but is weaker with less health. The last playable character is the mage. He has a very short-range club attack, but has the highest magical potential by far. I found myself favoring the priest and the ninja for the long-range attacks myself. I had the hardest time with the mage due to the limited range of a standard attack. One criticism I have for the game is how it handles magic ability. To use magic, you need to hold down the attack button and it will cycle through the magic options, then release the button to fire it. This takes time and can be clumsy in some hectic areas, and therefore I didn't rely on it as often as I probably could have. It would have been better to map this function to the select button since it doesn't do anything anyway. Item use is also fairly unconventional. All items found or purchased are used automatically, and when they are needed for it to take effect. At first it seems weird, but it's nice that once you acquire something, you never really need to think about how to use it. combat and levels are satisfying, but definitely arcade hard. You can sense by the level layout and enemy patterns that this is a game originally meant to suck quarters away from you. It's not a bad idea to spend some time grinding for experience in the early areas to level up early and grow stronger. Some controls in Cadash, like jumping, are a little stiff and take a moment to get used to. I found hazards like falling or water pits, for example like the one near the start of the game, can almost do more harm than enemy encounters. You can't just go in slashing away in this game. You need to think as you descend through the dens of monsters and put in solid focus to make it through alive. The graphics in Cadash on the Turbografx are nice. They're very colorful and atmospheric, but not quite as detailed as in the Genesis version. However, I found the better, deeper color palette makes the Turbografx version to be more vivid and visually pleasing. Compared to the Genesis and arcade versions, the characters are a little smaller, but I think this is good. It gives you a better, wider sense of scale to maneuver in. I personally like the art style and level design more with the Turbografx port than the Genesis and arcade releases, but that's just me. I've seen that the response of which look is better to be fairly evenly split online. In the end, which look is better is largely a matter of player preference. Music is passable. It gets the job done, but it really isn't anything special. Tracks are short and a loop a lot. The music does its job at providing atmosphere, but I really would never listen to it on my own. Some tunes get a little grating after a while, and the sound effects are serviceable at best. They aren't bad enough to really grate on your nerves, but they do get old after a while. Cadash is a fun game and definitely a worthy addition to any Turbografx collection. It's challenging but accessible, vibrant and moody in all the right ways. All 4 characters are worth trying, and having the option for all of them alone is a huge leg up over the Genesis port. It would have been nice to have numbers like stats and money more visible in the game, or maybe have more forgiving credit system, but things like this aren't enough to make a big mark on an otherwise fun package. Like Parasol Stars, Cadash isn't cheap to come by today. But it is also available as a playable game on the Turbografx mini console. Despite my criticisms, I really had fun with Cadash's mix of arcadey action and RPG elements. I felt driven to keep going, to try again and get farther into the game. If you are a retro gamer or Turbografx 16 collector that doesn't mind an old school challenge with some old school controls, I would definitely give Cadash a look. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of The World of Working Designs. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. I really, truly appreciate it. Next time, we will be covering Cosmic Fantasy 2 for the Turbografx CD. It's Working Designs' first foray into RPGs and the CD format. Is it fun? Did it break new ground? Is it an overlooked classic, or has it aged like a cheese sandwich in the sun? Check it out next time to find out. Bye now.